All right, we're live. We are live on YouTube, Twitch, all of those good things. Let's play the little bumper. I meant to play the bumper. Okay, there. That felt better. Hello and happy Monday. Welcome to another live stream. We're live on YouTube, Instagram, X, Twitch, and other platforms. In today's stream, we're going to be discussing Hash Bash with a boots on the ground perspective. What is Hash Bash, you might be asking? Hash Bash is an annual cannabis event held on the University of Michigan campus in Ann Arbor, Michigan, featuring a series of speeches, live performances, and so much more. We'll be discussing that. The focus is on the goal of legalizing marijuana at the federal, state, and local level in the United States. And in case you didn't know, Hash Bash actually served as an inspiration uh, to many, including folks within the state of Illinois, something that we've covered in the past. Uh, if you've never heard of Hash Wednesday, it's a similar event that started in the 70s at the University of Illinois. They called it, like I said, Hash Wednesday. And in case you missed it, I have an entire free to view photo archive of Hash Wednesday, which includes pictures, newspaper clippings of this cannabis, Illinois cannabis sorry, I cannot speak right now. I've got pictures, newspaper clippings of this Illinois cannabis history. I've also interviewed several students that were pictured or present at these peaceful protests throughout the years. You can view all of that content for free now at colememo.com/UIUC. Once again, that's colememo.com/UIUC. If you're catching this later and wondering how to tune in to the live streams, well, I would say the best way is to go to colememo.com/YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you never miss a stream. This podcast is also available for streaming on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and other podcasting platforms. Once again, we're live, so if you want to comment below, we can display your comments on screen. Just a quick news update before we bring on our guest. The Illinois Senate has passed Senate Bill 42. It's headed over to the House. In case you didn't know, Senate Bill 42 would prohibit law enforcement from using the smell of cannabis, raw or burnt, as the sole reason to search a vehicle. It would basically eliminate the requirement that cannabis be stored in an odor-proof container while still requiring it to be kept in a sealed, child-resistant container. The bill does not change existing DUI laws. Driving under the influence remains illegal. It also maintains the rule that cannabis must be out of reach while a vehicle is on the road. The law currently, and I feel like a lot of reporting buries this. I feel like, it's not only that police can search your vehicle, it's also that if you are caught transporting cannabis in something that law enforcement deems to be a non-odor proof container, that is a crime that was created in 2020 as a result of legalization. It's a Class A misdemeanor. I've covered this topic extensively with legal professionals on my podcast. I've written about it at colememo.com, and I've detailed the issue in my mini documentary, which you can watch now at colememo.com/minidoc. I've interviewed the senator that wrote the legislation to fix this issue, and I'll link some of my work related to this topic in the show notes, including the interview with the senator that I just mentioned. That's episode 179. I'm displaying that on my screen right now. The interview released first at colememo.com/Patreon. It's just $3 a month to become a member. Members get access to episodes before they release to the public. Just a quick heads up, if you're on an Apple device, I recommend signing up from a computer or a non-Apple device because Apple adds extra fees on top of the very fair price of $3 a month that I set, which isn't ideal, but big tech always wants their cut. So fuck you, Apple. I'm trying to give you all tips on how to avoid those extra fees. Once again, all of my episodes released for free ultimately. But if you'd like to support this show and get early access to episodes before they release, just consider becoming a member at colememo.com/Patreon because it costs a lot to do this show between licensing fees, the cost of travel, the cost of equipment, and more. This show is brought to you by listeners like you. And if Patreon's not your thing, you can make a one-time monthly or yearly contribution at colememo.com/support. And if you can't support financially, that is totally fine. One of the best ways to support the show is by smashing that like button, sharing the show with your friends, or leaving a positive review from wherever you're listening to us from. Again, those positive reviews are super, super helpful. And lastly, before we get into the show, I also just wanted to mention that Ohio State University recently hosted a panel on the subject of rescheduling cannabis and what the future might look like with regard to that. So in case you missed it, I'll throw a link in the show notes because it's free to view, and I learned a lot by watching it. So with all that said, let's talk about Hash Bash 2025 right after this message.
Sun-Drenched Farm is the manifestation of my dream to be able to provide for my family through offering natural alternative forms of healing and wellness, the same forms that I've been so fortunate to experience on my journey in healing from Lyme disease. With in-house cultivation, solventless extraction, and final product manufacturing, we're able to offer the highest quality product that you can find now at sundrenchedfarm.com.
All right, Phil, how's it going, dude?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Thank you for joining me tonight, and I'm super excited to talk about Hash Bash 2025. You actually made it there.
Yeah, it was a fun Saturday.
Yeah. So remind me, that was last weekend, right? This most recent weekend, is that?
Yeah, it was last Saturday. Yeah. And I think there's like an event that goes along with it called the Hash Bash Cup, which is like a cannabis competition that they have, which I think happens like Friday to Sunday, but the actual like protest rally is on Saturday.
Gotcha. So before we talk about what it was like, what inspired you to go? Was it just hearing about it all the time, or?
I'd heard about it for years and kind of always wanted to go and just never, I think in my head, it's always later in April because of 420. So for a couple years, it was like, oh, that'd be fun to go. And then it's like, oh, it's right at the beginning of April. So it kind of sneaks up on you. This year, I was like, oh, wait, it's like 2 weeks from now. I was like, I got a Saturday off. I was like, I'm just going to drive out there and go. It'll be fun. And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
It was super interesting.
That's cool. That's cool. So, like I said in the intro, it's in Ann Arbor, on campus, right at the University of Michigan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you're into your history. Like, do you know at all how this started? I know this is a Googleable question, but
Well, I know loosely the beginnings of it. Like
okay.
John Sinclair, who was like a politically active guy in Michigan, he like started the White Panther Party, and I feel like, well, he was like a jazz guy too. I was just going to say something, but I don't think it's right, so I'm going to skip it. But he got arrested in like 69 for having like 2 joints, and he was sentenced to I think 10 years in prison. So it kind of became this like big cause for how stupid cannabis laws were back then. Like John Lennon wrote a song about it, and like a bunch of people came out to this rally concert, like forum. So this, I can't remember. This was like, if this was directly started as like a rally from that rally, like that the first rally for him was like on this date. But it's like commemorating that rally and then that kind of struggle, because then in 1972, Ann Arbor decriminalized possession of cannabis. It was like you'd get like a $5 fine or something, so like no one would get bothered by it, by the cops. So they were like the first like city or town, like municipality, to do that.
Wow. So, and I think this is something you've said to me in the past, but in that way, Michigan, specifically Ann Arbor, kind of paved the way with decriminalization, huh?
Well, they were wanted, yeah. Like I think there was like a state and maybe something else that did it before them. If you look on like the timeline of cannabis decriminalization, at least what it says on Wikipedia.
Yeah. And now they're leading the way in other ways, which we'll talk about. Maybe we'll talk about through the course of this discussion. But before we get to that, just walk me through, like what was it like to arrive? Like, is cannabis in the air on arrival?
Well, it was funny because like Ann Arbor's like, it's like a decently sized city, but it's like a college town, So you're like you like, I got there like probably like 10:15, 10:30. It starts at noon. There's like a street fair that goes on a couple blocks from the rally site where they have like vendors and they sell food and all kinds of other stuff. But so get in the parking garage, like everyone getting out of their cars, I was like, oh, these are all like a bunch of stoners. Like we're all going to the same place. Like you could just tell.
Yeah. I was
So
about
then
to
you're
say,
like all walking there, and then I just thought it was hilarious. The first thing I saw when I got to like the diag, like the square where the rally is, was just this like, she's like slightly older than me. She's probably like in her 50s. Just this woman, just in like all sweats, just like doing like this like old lady hippie dance to some music some guy was playing. And I was like, well, this is really setting the tone.
yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
So yeah, and then there's just tents everywhere, and people are selling all kinds of products, and ones that'll get you high and ones that won't.
Yeah. And just blazing it out in the open, I'm sure everybody just the whole
Yeah,
time.
everyone's just smoking a lot of weed. There's a lot of coughing.
Yeah.
Going on.
That's one thing I noticed from the videos is like, damn, they must be smoking good shit. There's a lot of people coughing.
Well, it's funny too, because like, I don't know, I've like, I feel like back in the day when I was younger, I remembered people smoking weed at concerts more because it was still, you could still smoke cigarettes. So there was like a lot of cover smoke. But even compared to like back then, like there was just a lot of weed smoke in a very small space.
Yeah.
Like even when I went to go have a joint, I was like, I need to like remove myself from this crowd.
That's
Go
funny.
get a little more space off to the side to smoke this joint.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can get a little bit of air between your hits, right?
Well, yeah, and because people are smoking like comically large joints and like, yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Looks like we got a comment in. Somebody said hit the thumb button. Yeah, hit that thumbs up. Smash the like button, as the kids say. It helps. So that's super, super cool. What now you mentioned, you saw kind of like the cliche older hippie woman. What was like the make of the crowd? I mean, was it a lot of young people, I guess is what I'm asking,
Well,
or
it's
was it just
funny
all over
because
the place?
it's on a college camp, like a huge campus, obviously, and school is in session. But I would say like it was a very even mix of like ages. I'm like 39, I'm about to be 40. I would say I was like very middle of the pack. Like there were a lot of old people there. And then, yeah, of course, a lot of college kids, which was kind of the fun about it. Like, like someone who's like 19, 20, 21 going definitely doesn't have the same perspective on the drug war that someone who's at this rally who's like 60, 65, 70.
Right.
So I don't know, it almost feels like it serves as like a passing on of tradition and knowledge to like a younger generation from people that have been doing it for a long time.
And I think there's a need for that in a way, because I have younger family members that have basically grown up with cannabis legalized, and so they're just like, what's the big deal? Like they don't understand. Like it's just something you go to the store and you can get, just like alcohol. And so like they didn't live through like having to know a guy and like watching over your shoulder, and
or that maybe the struggle shouldn't end there either, right?
True.
Like the first guy who was like speaking at the rally like was talking, he's like, yeah, this is about all drugs. Like we should have the right to do all drugs.
See, now that's what
and the government should consider it part of their responsibility to get people a safe drug supply. You know?
Yeah. That's kind of cool to hear, because it does seem in some ways that, and I don't know. I just feel like I've seen the cannabis movement almost try to separate itself from like the drug legalization movement. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, right. Except for like these, whatever people consider like acceptable psychedelics that they've decided are okay to start forming companies around and, getting on stock markets.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's.
But yeah, awesome. Totally. But also like at the event, like, I mean, I didn't know what the vendor situation was going to be like till I got there, because I had read different things. I don't know if it's like changed. It might ebb and flow over the years. I don't know if there's been crackdowns at certain points in the past, but pretty much right away, people had tents that were just like selling weed, edibles, shrooms, like anything you could want, you could find from some gray market vendor there. But also next to those vendors, you would have a tent for like a Michigan licensed cannabis company.
Which is crazy to think about, because
yeah,
the people in Illinois, especially the people that have dispensaries in Illinois, would be crying about the mushrooms for sale and the other people selling weed. You know what I mean? Like, that's unfair, type of thing.
Well, and it's like, it's just decriminalized there. It's not like there's any framework for someone to do it, like in a framework.
Yeah, you're talking mushrooms, right?
Yeah.
Right. It just reminds me of with this hemp thing going on, which I actually saw you had some. It looks like some anti-hempers even made their way to the.
Oh yeah, I literally took that picture for you.
That's funny. But I remember one of the complaints that like came out of left field. I don't know, maybe we were on the show, but we always hear the complaints about hemp. But I remember somebody from the licensed cannabis industry was like, and they sell nitrous gas, and it's like, the fuck's the problem with like nitrous gas does not compete with any of your products. Where's this discontent coming from?
I don't know if there's a lot of customer overlap, or if it is, they're looking for the two separate things.
Right.
Yeah, I had someone offer me a balloon when I was walking around. Some guy offered me acid when I was walking around. There was like a table selling DMT vapes. I mean, it seemed like you could really find your variety of psychedelics if you were
wow.
Yeah.
All while the cops were watching, right? You said the cops were pretty.
Yeah, the cops were just walking around like as crowd control and security, just to make sure no one got out of hand. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It truly, I like later, because I didn't actually buy anything from people there because I had other places I wanted to go in town to buy stuff from that I had scoped out before. So when I was at this like mushroom shop later talking to the woman who owned it, she was like, yeah, we have our own little like world here in Ann Arbor. And I was like, truly, it feels like I'm in another country. Like where like the United States drug laws don't exist, or at least a lot of their drug laws don't exist.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. Brief teaser for the future. We're going to be having somebody that led the Decriminalize Ann Arbor movement on the show. That'll be probably early next month or so. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's crazy to hear. I bet it would feel like you're in a different country. And so just to recap, you not only saw like cannabis on sale from licensed and unlicensed retailers, but you saw
I don't know if the licensed guys were selling anything. I think they were just doing like promo stuff. They might have been giving stuff away.
Sure. But you didn't see, they weren't like structured like the other booths where it was like very obviously they had.
Yeah, they didn't have like pounds of weed in bags just sitting behind the table.
That's so cool. Now, did you see a lot of people purchasing? Like,
I mean, yeah, I think that's what a lot of people go there for.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Really quick, a commenter said, many people I worked with at the dispo never used flower, just vapes and the occasional dab. No one interested in growing either. That's I've heard similar things, and I know people that they grew up in an era of edibles and vapes, and that's what they do. They don't smoke flower, which is like, to each their own. I'm not dissing anybody. It's just, it's funny to think about, because like when I was growing up, like you only had flower. Like if you really knew a guy, you could maybe get hash, but it wasn't toward like Colorado and certain adult use legalizations where vape pens and edibles were even an option. You know what I'm saying? So kind of interesting.
Imagine if you've like used cannabis for a long time and you've only used vapes and edibles, and then you actually go smoke flower. I feel like you'd be like, oh, right. That's what being stoned is.
Seriously though.
Like they're very
Seriously.
different. Like I just feel like those three in particular are like very different.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like vapes, like you can for sure get high off of it, but like you say, it's just different. It's a different high.
I always say vapes are high maintenance. So it's like I get real high before I leave the house, and then I got my vape on me to maintain my high.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and then edibles, they're just like, fuck, like lately with my tolerance being as low as it is, I basically can't eat an edible without being like super baked the next day. It's just like what happens.
My limit, like if I do anything over like 70, then I still feel it in the morning. Like 70, 80, I'll feel like I have like a weed hangover in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a question for you. Did you see any good BHO at Hash Bash?
I mean, I'm sure it was there.
Yeah.
Certainly, if not, like, because that's the thing is they have vendors at the rally, they have vendors at the Monroe Street Fair, and then they have vendors all weekend at a hotel convention center at the Hash Bash Cup.
Wow.
So, yeah, if you're looking to like scope out the caregiver gray market scene in Michigan, this would probably be a good start.
Yeah. Did you by chance see our friends from the My Canicast?
No, I didn't see them there. No.
Oh darn. Well, this is cool. This is somebody you
There's,
saw.
I mean, honestly, there's a lot of people there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Like
sure.
it was like a lot of people.
Yeah, I'll have to show people images of the crowd because yeah, it was a crazy turnout. You saw Tommy Chong though in the flesh. I'm showing a picture right now that you took. That's
Tommy
cool.
Chong was there. I'm sure the crowd was extra large for that reason.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. One of the funny things, here's a good picture of the crowd.
I think I have one from the other direction too, some point.
Nice. Yeah, you can definitely see the smoke in the air, people hitting, looks like a good time. Oh, here we go. Converted hemp, no to greed, yes to weed. That's funny. That's super funny to see. I wonder what the perspective is there in Michigan on hemp because you'd have to imagine it's way different. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know anything about their like regulations or laws concerning it.
Yeah. I mean, the most I've heard about it is people, saying that there's inversion going on where they're basically like using hemp distillate or whatever. And like, instead of diverting it out of the legal system, they're inverting it into the legal system to lower the cost of their inputs.
That could like explain the sign then.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm wondering is if that's where they're coming from. Here's another image of the crowd. Crazy, man. That's a lot of people.
Well, and all those tents in the back, like those are all like different vendors, but that's just like one. That's just like one part of it.
And were there like any mushrooms on sale, like in this area, like on the quad?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, just like the largest bag of shrooms I've ever seen. Like, what would be, because I mean I use them for microdosing. There's like rarely, maybe once a year, I'll take the amount that it takes to actually like feel like I'm tripping.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I mean, a bag this big would be like a lifetime supply for me.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool as hell. That just openly selling mushrooms. This comment just came in. Did you see any old school hash or?
Oh, you know what's funny is actually when I was in town, because there's a licensed cannabis company in Michigan called Old School Hash. And they sell in these little tins. They sell, let me see if I have a picture of it. They sell little 5-gram bricks of hash, and they have little hash pipes in it too. But that's I literally crazy. Like specifically made a point. I was like, I gotta go get me some of that.
Yeah. I love that they're literally called Old School Hash too. It's funny.
Yeah, if I can.
Oh, it's blurred a little bit. Let's see if we can make you bigger. You can kind of see there's
You
something
can
hash
check it
like
out.
in that
It's a
picture.
tin with a brick of hash in it, okay?
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. Someone said Temple Ball hash. I've never even heard of that.
Well, that same company does temple balls too. They do bubble. They do three different kinds. They do bubble hash, temple balls, and then they do like that hard pressed brick kind.
Gotcha. Oh wow, here's another picture that you took from looks like behind the stage. Maybe this is what you were thinking of. And you can really see that
Mhm.
crowd was packed. That's
Well,
so cool.
and like people are all at the other places too while this is going on. So it's just a lot of people. I was surprised at how many people were there.
Yeah. This is crazy. Fucking mushroom delivery? Let's go. That's cool.
Yeah, there were multiple flyers like that around.
Like different brands, you mean?
Like different
Basically.
companies, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's like from what I can read and like surmise, there seems to be like a handful of brick and mortar stores in town too. Like
That's cool.
the one I went to is called MF Shrooms, and it was literally like a shroom dispensary in the back of a vintage clothing store.
Yeah. We just got
I
the
mean,
mil-
like if you want to know something that will never appear in Illinois.
Well, and that's what's funny. This question that just came in, they said, "So Cole, do you think we could replicate this type of event in Illinois? Where could it be done?" What do you think, Phil?
See, I don't know. That's what I was thinking about before we got on here. Like, what's the reason something like this wouldn't have happened in Illinois? And like, you didn't have that original case of like John Sinclair or whatever that was such a galvanizing thing. But I also think that like our college town, I mean, you have like the University of Chicago and Northwestern, but like what the equivalent of University of Michigan would be like University of Illinois, but that's in like such a more conservative part of the state.
Right.
So I don't know. I maybe think like the overlap of the fact that our colleges are more downstate in more conservative areas, but then again, like the Chicago area isn't really that liberal concerning drug policy and stuff either. So I don't know. I mean, I think you could do like some version of this event, but like you're not going to be selling shrooms out of tents. You're going to go to jail.
Yeah, and passing around LSD and balloons of nitrous.
Because they only decriminalized psychedelics in 2020, and all of that stuff is not included in there. Like acid is not included in that law. I don't think.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a chemist, so I don't know like the technical terms of all this stuff. But like, you know, people will talk about like MDMA or ketamine or stuff like that. I don't think those are included in that. I think it's like mescaline, something like a 2CB might be in there, like those types of drugs, but I don't even know about that. Because I think it more focuses on like plants.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I feel like the campaign that did it, I could be wrong, I'm about to Google it. I believe it was called Decriminalize Nature. And, you know, I mean, one could argue maybe that LSD is nature because it's like, what is that, argot or ingot? I don't know what the hell it is. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, it's isn't LSD like a synthetic version of something found in nature? Wasn't that like the...
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I did just find Decriminalize Nature. Maybe it's a specific organization now that I'm looking at it. They say we exist to decriminalize entheogenic plants and fungi without limits on how much we can grow, gather, gift, and share. Which that's what the fuck I'm talking about. You know?
Well, that's what the whole thing there is supposed to be. Like, I think these people that are doing like brick and mortar shops or even the delivery services are kind of like when Michigan first legalized medical cannabis, there weren't like, it wasn't like you could open a dispensary, but it was like kind of random whether or not you were going to get arrested for it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think these people are like kind of pushing the envelope a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah.
So if you want to experience a mushroom dispensary, I'd say go now.
Yeah. That dude, seriously, I'm gonna have to
Because
fucking
really,
go.
and I'll say just for other people that like to use this stuff, the reason I wanted to go there was because on this place's website, this MF Shroom store, they had like descriptions on these different, like it had never, like I had a friend grow mushrooms for me a long time ago. And, you know, they were just like your average, I think they're probably golden teachers or B plus, like your average shrooms that have just kind of always been around. Well, there are a lot stronger and different varieties of mushrooms that are around now, which
Of
was kind of
course.
like, which was a new thing for me to know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but so yeah, just going there and having like all these varieties, and you know, it's just kind of eye opening.
Yeah. Somebody knew what I was trying to say. They said ergotamine, which the body synthesizes into LSD, is derived from the ergot fungus, which grows readily of grains like rye. So, and somebody else was talking about, I don't know. They said I was typing that and basically erased it because somebody beat me. Um, somebody beat them to it. So you told me one story that I thought was interesting where you were like, you were going to get mushrooms, but they were like, we can't sell the mushroom chocolates here, so we have to meet you somewhere
Oh yeah,
else.
so I wanted these two different varieties. One was this one called Albino Shakti, and she was like, "Oh, I don't have any more of that, but I made it into chocolate bars. But if you want to buy one, you have to meet me down the street at Speedway." And as someone who bought drugs from all kinds of shady people for most of my life, I wasn't taken aback by that at all. So I just walked
Right.
down to Speedway and met her there. But I was like, what is it? What is this about? And I guess because either it's something about them being regulated by the Department of Agriculture. Like
Hmm.
someone in the city government was like, you can't sell food here, but you
Okay.
can sell psychedelic mushrooms here. So
Wow.
and she was
Ann
telling me,
Arbor.
she was like, yeah, some other guy, because she knew I was from Chicago. She was like, some other guy was here from out of state, and he met me over here to buy this chocolate bar, and we're just sitting by like the air pumps at the Speedway where you like fill your tire. And she's like, and there was a cop like sitting right over there at the nearest pump, like 20 feet away. And the guy like, she's like, yeah, and the guy was like getting all weird and anxious, and she just had to be like, look, he doesn't care. this doesn't matter to him.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's the way it should be. You know,
I mean,
it's
people think, like I was talking to my husband about this because he thought it was totally crazy. I mean, he's from Michigan, like he knows Ann Arbor, but he still thought it was crazy. And I was like, but is it crazy? Like, we are so like desensitized to alcohol. I have taken too many mushrooms at times. I've had like debilitating bad trips where like you have to go hide in bed and just like hope for it to be over. And that was all I did. There's other times in my life I've been like blackout drunk and done something I definitely regret more than just, having to climb in bed.
yeah.
Like alcohol makes people do crazy shit. And I just think like, sure, it might seem crazy to you that people are selling mushrooms, but like think about what the reality of consuming mushrooms is. And if someone really like has too much.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can't really like, it's not the type of thing you can abuse.
Mm-hmm.
You literally can't take it like days in a row.
Yeah.
Your tolerance would be like, your tolerance grows exponentially, essentially, if you do it day after day.
Right.
You have to take twice as much the next day to feel the same amount.
And the weirdest thing about mushrooms for me is that I don't want to take it very often.
Well, that's
like,
just it. Yeah. Well, do you ever take like really small quantities?
Sure. Yeah. Especially lately, I've been kind of working through different things. I think I mentioned to you and I've mentioned on the show a few times, like haven't been smoking as much lately. So like, yeah, I'll kind of microdose trying to just get through like a period of time, but yeah,
That
just
was
small amounts.
specifically why I wanted these couple varieties of shrooms that this place had, was because they're supposed to be less of like a body load.
Mm-hmm.
like less of that weird heavy body feeling you sometimes get from shrooms,
Yeah.
and just supposed to be more like energetic and like mindful. And at least the one time I had a microdose so far, that was what I experienced.
Nice.
But that's what I
Nice.
like. I take like usually less than a quarter gram, especially with these stronger kinds. Even like a tenth of a gram can be enough. And it's just like, it's a nice sunny day. You go with your dog to the park for an hour or two. I don't know. It usually makes you feel a lot better if you're having like kind of a bad time of things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just say again, I like really love the fact that Hash Bash, like of course it started as this, and it seems to have a cannabis centric focus, but the fact that they also have this focus, and you heard statements indicating that they're for legalizing all drugs. Like, I don't know, people I think forget we're supposed to be like land of the free, and like the fact that we can't explore different types of consciousness doesn't feel very free.
You should play that one clip of that guy Adam Brook talking.
Oh,
I
yeah.
sent it to you. I don't know if it's in there, if you can access it.
Yeah, I think I can pull that up. Yeah, absolutely. While I'm pulling that up, just a funny story about Adam Brook. I thought it was hilarious so I saw you had tagged him speaking. It's funny, I get messages from friends all the time. Somebody just messaged me about the Senate bill, and they're like, "This is good, right?" Yes, it's good. The odor proof bill that I talked about at the beginning of the show. So while you're at Hash Bash, you had posted his speech, and I'm just trying to get logged into YouTube over here so I can play that video. And I clicked on his name, Adam Brook, for people that are wondering. And I was like, oh my God, this guy follows me on Instagram. I was like, Phil, I'm going to have to get this guy on the show. This is going to be cool. And you were like, Cole, you've literally been on his podcast. I was like, oh yeah. It's funny how you can forget.
You definitely met him virtually at one point.
Yeah. It's just hilarious because I'm glad you said that, because on the off chance that he remembered that, I would be like, it's nice to meet you. It's like, we've already met. That's always embarrassing.
He smokes a lot of weed. I would doubt he would remember it.
Yeah. See, and that's my excuse. It's like, I can't remember. Sometimes people are like, we've met before. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I smoke a lot of weed. Yeah, let's see. I think I've got this here. Yeah, let's pull this up and watch this video that you captured. All right, here it is. Maybe. There we go.
It's against the law to do that here.
Oh wait, pause it.
That's why we do.
Yeah.
So he first gets up and he starts his speech by saying, "Fuck the police." He just screams that. And then he mentions like how it is illegal to smoke weed on the campus.
Okay.
Like you're all here to like demonstrate and smoke weed to like break the law, to be like, fuck the police. You can keep going because I like what he says next.
Sweet.
Fucking bring it. It's against the law to do that here. And that's why we do it. That's what this event is about. This event was started for one reason and one reason only. To say fuck you to the man. Now a lot of you guys are kind of young and may not understand what that means. That's okay. You'll turn 30, you'll figure it out. The one cool thing, in my opinion, about marijuana, weed, dope, whatever the hell you want to call it, is that it brings people together.
You can stop it there.
All walks of life.
Sweet.
He goes on to talk about how some guy with like a swastika tattoo handed him a joint once, and he didn't hate him, even though he's Jewish. I was like, well, I don't know if I go that far, but it does bring people together.
Yeah, that's funny.
No, and I was just him getting up there and like starting his speech out in that way, saying "fuck the police," then being like "fuck the man." It's like, this is why I drove 3.5 hours.
Hell yeah, it is. Hell yeah, it is. That's what's kind of cool, because somebody just commented on Instagram saying, "What are we watching?" We just watched a speech from Hash Bash. So, yeah, some people have messaged me about doing Hash Wednesday again at the University of Illinois, and they're like, "So can we smoke or should we smoke?" And I'm like, "That's if I were you, I would." But that's
I think
up to-
that's kind of how they approach it at like Hash Bash too, is like, it's a student organization that like requests the permit and like technically puts on the event. And then the Monroe Street Fair that's a couple blocks away, and like any of the vending stuff that's going on that's like weed and shrooms is not really like with the event.
Mhm.
Like they don't oversee any of that. That just like kind of goes on.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just interesting because one of the guys who was involved with planning it, like kind of like I sensed he was like making a point to say that during his speech, was like, the only people that are here with us are these types of, any of the vending that's going on, that's not with us.
Yeah, trying to like CYA.
Well, because I think it is very much, it's like the university tolerates it, and the city police tolerate it. They're not going to like cause problems, but you could imagine a world in which things get a little more like out of hand in their mind, and like maybe they would crack down on some aspects of it. But it's a hell of a fun time, and I highly recommend people that believe in the reform of drug laws should go.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go next year for sure. Somebody said let's do Bicycle Day. The Guapo from Support Dope People, the Two Dope Dudes podcast. Bicycle Day, I think, is on 4/19, if I'm not mistaken.
I love the Two Dope Dudes theme song.
Oh, I could sing it right now.
Two dope dudes bringing you the news.
Yeah.
I literally I fast forward through all intros to podcasts. That one I was like, I'll leave this one on.
Dude, same here. I listened to it. I let it play. So shout out to the Two Dope Dudes. Check them out on YouTube. Search them up. The Elevated News podcast. It's great. They cover a lot of Illinois focused news. They great guests. And yeah, I just can't say enough good things about them. So definitely check them out and support them, So somebody said, mark my words, microdosing mushrooms will be the new vape pen. Soccer moms will say, I don't have time to go to therapy, so I'm just microdosing mushrooms.
It's funny because like for me, like weed is just weed. Like I'll smoke whatever, I'll consume whatever. Like it's like coffee to me. It's just such a part of my life. I don't notice like minor differences in smoking this strain or that strain. Like I notice a difference between like a cheap distillate pen and some good flower or something like that. But with shrooms, I am like really looking forward to some scientists getting their hands on these things and like finding out what compounds do what and making me some like fun microdose pills I can pick up at the CVS.
Dude, straight up. One thing I wish I could figure out, because I love mushrooms, but I swear there are just some times when you take mushrooms and it's just like not the right day for it. And I'm not talking about like the mental headspace it puts in. Like I'm talking about like how your body processes it. And I'm not even talking about like, because sometimes I've had like I've heard a lot of people talk about how their body processes it, but it's like sometimes it just gives me this like weird anxiety feeling. It's like you're like, I don't think anxiety is the right way, but it's like you're going up a like up a hill on a roller coaster. You just feel like you're being like shot into the fucking sky. And it's like, this needs to let's bring it down a bit,
Which is also kind of some of the fun of it.
For sure. Yeah. You get a little scared,
Yeah. You get a little bit scared. You're like, am I losing it? Am I not going to be able to handle this?
Yeah. Guapo said, lessons learned. You just have to listen. That's so true. You just have to listen to the shrooms. I will say you just can't
fight the shrooms is where you get in your trouble.
That's what I was just about to say is I learned one time I was sitting in a hammock and that was happening to me. And I just had the thought where it was like, just give in, just let it, just submit. And as soon as I did that, I like took a big deep breath, exhaled, and everything was okay from then on. I just had to like let go.
Well, and that's literally like what like a trip sitter is there to do for somebody like who isn't that experienced in those things. Yeah, like I remember the first bad trip I had. Like I was alone in like my first apartment. I was 19 and I literally had like closed all the blinds and turned off all the lights and was just sitting in the room in like total silence because I was like convinced there was crazy shit going on in the building. And my roommate just came home and was like, Philip, like what's happening? But just the fact that she was like there and I was like, oh wait, nothing's happening outside.
Yeah, everything's okay.
But you like you have that experience, and now like going forward, anytime I take shrooms, it's like oh no, this is like make believe. This is not real. Like this is just how like I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did like get the sense that the woman who ran that like little shroom shop, that like she kind of like when I walked up, she was just like, oh, like I think she could tell like, oh, this guy's taking shrooms. He's like here, he knows what the hell he wants. Like I was like, oh, I was looking at your menu. I'm checking out these ones. These sound like these are pretty good. There were two other younger guys that seemed like they were college age that she was like, seemed like she was like helping and like talking about stuff and like, you know, don't take too much.
Kind of guiding through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see any like, okay, obviously you saw like, you know, classic mushrooms, let's call them, like legitimate spores. I about held up the bag that's in front of me. Did you see any other like drinks or tinctures or, you know what I mean? Like kind of, you said you saw edibles, so there's that.
She had edibles. See, like the tincture stuff, like I've had it before. I wasn't looking for it, but I bet you could find it in town if you wanted it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And you said you saw DMT as well? I mean, hell yeah.
That was I mean, I know that that's like around town, but I definitely saw at least one vendor at the Monroe Street Fair was selling it.
Yeah. And was it,
if it's to be believed, right?
Right. Was it just the vape pens or did you see like actual like
That's what I would
crystalline-
assume. I mean, I think that's like the main way I've heard about it being packaged these days.
Gotcha. That is so cool. And were the mushroom booths as well attended? You mentioned earlier that people were buying weed for sure, you know, like that's maybe like why a lot of people come, but were the mushroom booths also pretty well attended?
I mean, there was, if 100% of the booths had weed, 80% of them had shrooms too. Like there was like a lot. It was a lot of mushrooms. That's what I was saying. I was walking around. I was like, this is like enough mushrooms to like have this whole city trip.
Oh, right. Man, I wonder if this is like, do you think that it's going to get sort of, I know this is totally speculation here, but do you think it'll be sort of reined in? Like, you know, I would say it would seem like California used to be that way, or maybe even in
with shrooms.
Yeah, like I guess what I'm saying is like, do you think it'll be more like it'll like there'll be?
No, I mean I've never heard of a place other than Colorado being like this.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Like
that's
specifically Denver. I don't even know if it's all of Colorado.
I can tell you firsthand. Yeah, I saw that shit at Denver. Like just booths with jars, more mushrooms than I've ever seen.
Right, because I know too. I think it's like a similar thing. It's like I think they just started to have some kind of like therapeutic centers you can go to, but it's been decriminalized to the point of where it's like, you know, people just sell them.
Yeah,
like kind of under the table, like in the city. So I imagine it's kind of like a similar scene.
Mm-hmm.
What were you going to say?
Well, I guess what I was asking is like, it seems like the traditional experience of purchasing cannabis. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, because you were saying, like, do you think it's going to be like cracked down on?
Yeah.
I kind of don't, because they're not alone. Like Detroit and this other city nearby, Hazel Park, also decriminalized. And so like I even found there's like the shop I went to was like, like if I had to set up a mushroom shop, that's what it would be. I'd rent a space in the back of some vintage clothing store and sell it to people for a really good deal. But there's like other stores, like there was some place called Spores Detroit. And I didn't check it out because it was like more money than I was looking to spend. But, there are other people doing like that place, like the Spores Detroit, like looked like a lot of cannabis dispensaries you would go into these days. Like they had like merch and they had like light up neon shrooms on the wall. And, like it looked like a like stylish dispensary type setup.
Yeah. And that really was my question. I didn't figure like a crackdown wasn't the best word to use. What I meant to say was, God, I don't even know how you would describe, but think of the trajectory we've seen with cannabis where it's like sold the way you're describing, just at a booth in a jar, you weigh it out compared to like what Illinois dispensaries look like now. Like, do you think there's going to be like that sort of reining in like, whoa, we can't do that because apparently that's crazy, even though that's how it's always been sold.
Like I could imagine a world in which like the federal government comes in and starts causing trouble for people. Because I feel like that was also what happened sometimes back in like the like when they had their caregiver market and some people were setting up dispensaries that were like selling to patients. I feel like some of those people got in trouble with like federal stuff, not just like from the state.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like you might see that kind of thing, but honestly, like
wasn't that the story behind Rainbow Farms? Am I wrong on that? Where the federal
that was before. I mean, you could argue that kicked off the move to have like a medical market in Michigan, because that would happen just before 9/11.
Gotcha. For some reason, I thought the feds went in for that, but it's looking like it might have been, Michigan State Police. So, not really what I was thinking it was. But that's another thing to look into, folks. Rainbow Farms in Michigan. Definitely interesting history there.
But truly, it just seems like this, like the psychedelic stuff in Michigan, and this seems like the start of that, like being decriminalized broadly, like us having a law like that here.
Right. Well, and it kind of goes back to what you said at the beginning, like Ann Arbor led the way with cannabis decriminalization. It seems like they're leading the way with this now, right?
Well, and they only did it like 4 or 5 years ago, and the fact that we already have, like, we have a law that people have been working on to decriminalize. Wasn't it decriminalizing home cultivation?
Yeah, I mean the first iteration of the Cure Act, which I think you're thinking of, just descheduled psilocybin at a state level, which I've always said is farther than we went with cannabis. I'm hearing word that they're kind of paring that approach back a bit. Like maybe that was a little too radical, but I don't think it was. Yeah, and that's kind of why I asked that question, because even in Illinois, you see people saying, well, like the talk literally is maybe we should do a pilot program, which that sounds familiar, right?
I just think like shrooms are everywhere in Detroit and Ann Arbor, and the sky is not falling. People are not jumping out of windows, like there's people every couple miles, someone's getting blackout drunk and beating their spouse, but let's all be worried about decriminalizing mushrooms.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, all of this hysteria around intoxicating substances with regard to the subject of hemp, like that doesn't that makes like this conversation a little bit harder. You know what I'm saying? Like if you actually believe those things.
Well, also I love the like that sentiment that Adam Burke had of like fuck the man. Like where does that fit into the cannabis hemp argument? Who in that side is the fuck the man people?
Right, right.
Because I would argue those people are in the true spirit of cannabis, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and then the people that are literally arguing for those shops to be like shut down, like that seems like you're like telling that like you're like asking
It
for
almost
support from the
seems
man.
like it almost seems like you've become the man.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. Well, before I saw a cannabis question came in that's focused on Illinois. Before I get to that, any other thoughts on hash bash in Michigan? I mean, it sounds like you said, a fucking sounds like I should have been there. I'm really
Well, you
bummed
should
I didn't
definitely
make it.
go. You should
Yeah.
definitely go. Yeah, I think there was something I saw. It was like on one of their hash bash websites. It was like steps of hash bash. Attend hash bash. Watch the speeches of hash bash. Become radicalized and return home and like continue the fight for drug reform.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, like people should go to hash bash if you think drug laws in this country should change and you want to hang out with a bunch of like-minded people for a day. Ann Arbor's a beautiful city. Some good food.
Yeah. I saw you posted your haul online. What I hadn't checked back. What was the reception like on that? Like were people like, get this out of here? Or were they like, that's pretty cool?
No, people were very excited to find out they had access to a wide variety of mushrooms within a couple hours of Chicago.
Sweet. Another reason to go to Michigan, right?
And I won't, well, maybe I won't mention this.
Yeah. Maybe just remember what you were going to say and tell me when we get off air.
Yeah, I will.
Cool. Sweet. Well, somebody.
But yeah, no, that, yeah, that post about the shrooms, it was funny because I expected a bunch of people to be like, this isn't the right place for that thing. But genuinely, I don't feel like anyone had a negative reaction to it.
Yeah.
I think people were just like, what? How is that even possible? Which is exactly the thought I had when, like, you know, a couple months ago, I realized this was the situation there. And I was like, you know what, it'd be a great time. Go check out Hash Bash and check out the local shroom scene.
Yeah. And, you know, the reason I asked that, and I asked a similar question earlier, was because I don't know if you remember, but there was this YouTube streamer recently that was reached out to by Verano, and he's actually from Illinois. His name's Goblin, and he just basically like railed on them, like was like, "You're the worst fucking weed company ever. You're gonna fucking reach out to me." And then he tweeted a bunch of things. Actually, one of them was the FOIA request I did where they found out that I believe it was Verano was spraying pesticides on their plants during flowering. And I watched cannabis investors on this show that I've sent you a few times sort of react to what had happened. And one of the things that they said was like, they kind of were railing on Verano too. And they were saying like, what were you thinking reaching out to this kid who does mushrooms? And like he like, but the way they were saying it was like as if cannabis and mushrooms like aren't amazing to do together. You know, like they were like, why would you, the tone was almost like, why would you give it to this junkie? Why would you reach out to this junkie when we're trying to like show how responsible cannabis is, you know?
And I know that guy is kind of like a character, but he's like a counterculture character for like, you know what, a Gen Z or like 20 somethings at this point. Like he has a large following. Like that's why they reached out to him. Mm-hmm. Like it might not make sense to people who just think about cannabis stocks all the time, but
That's my thing. It fucking seemed like a natural fit. I mean, yeah.
Well,
I
and
could
yeah,
see
it's
it.
like, yeah, I mean, who is Verano's target customer, I guess? Is it like 40 somethings who are concerned about the stock market, or like 20 somethings who are like part of the culture now that are going to be cannabis culture 20 years from now?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It just, I bring it up because it seems like there is a
Well, like,
crowd.
and like cannabis companies in Illinois, or people like those guys on the Dales Report, like they wouldn't want anything to do with hash bash.
That's really my question. Right.
Yeah.
Like they look at things like that and they're like, that's out of control. That, it needs to be in a safe, regulated, low
Well,
dose.
and one thing I would say about like being at Hash Bash and Monroe Street Fair is like, I'm not saying this from like a place of judgment, but like many people in society would consider people that were at that event to be like unsavory characters, for lack of a better term. And I'm sure a lot of the people there have criminal records, like probably related to drug crimes, which is why they're there, hoping to save other people that hassle. But, like, yeah, like that's kind of like who is a criminal? Who is an unsavory character?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like you deal with somebody that has mushrooms or whatever, like, and you put them in our prison system. Like, do you expect them to come out? I don't know. I've just never seen somebody come out of like a non-violent drug offender like that. Like, unless you're really strong character, like it doesn't help you to be placed alongside like actual violent offenders, like people that actually hurt people.
Well,
you know what I
and
mean?
what, like, in my life, I've never bought mushrooms from someone who seemed like some hard carrot, like some like tough guy, or some like mushrooms are not like the drug of some hardened criminal or some like gangbanger. It's like, yeah, they're gonna take a couple grams of shrooms and really get in touch with their emotions and think about how we're all one, and how it's so weird how nature looks like it's breathing sometimes. And
Right. Right. The last thing they're gonna do, in my mind, is like purposefully commit a violent offense. Which is, like, to be honest, I feel like pretty normal if you drink alcohol to like commit a violent offense.
Yeah.
So that's just one thing that is really hilarious when you think about some of the things that can be said about any of these drugs. But it's like, but on the other hand, like that seems
well,
like
you
that.
just have to explain it to people like that. Like I've had this conversation with my dad before, where he's like, magic mushrooms, like psychedelics, it's so crazy. It's like, Dad, you like whiskey. I was like, some people, when they drink whiskey, literally become like an alter ego who's a psycho. Like, mushrooms doesn't do that to you.
Yeah. No real. It seems like that's just accepted, though. Like you said earlier, it's almost.
Well, that's the thing, but you don't, like, you have to explain it to people like that. Because, like, I don't know, there's a lot of people in the world who also don't have the experience of being around horrible drunks. But like, if you do, you could be like, yeah, do you know how crazy alcohol makes people?
True.
Like, pretty fucking nuts. Like, there are people literally in jail for the rest of their lives for some night they don't even remember. Mushrooms is not going to make you do that.
Right. Straight up. That's, really well said. Well, folks, if you're watching right now, we'll be wrapping soon. But if you have any questions about said Hash Wednesday, Hash Bash, definitely drop your comments, and Phil can do his best to answer since he was there. So yeah, drop those comments. We are live. Thank you everybody for joining us. Somebody said, I heard omnibus again this year. Phil, we were actually in a meeting earlier today, and yeah, it does sound like there is a potential for another cannabis omnibus this year. Sounds like that's in the works. And I agree with this person. Sad face. It's like, I don't think anything's going to happen. Like, if there's going to be anything that's going to happen, and I obviously don't want it to happen, but it's going to be about hemp, you know? That seems like priority number one, because that is, I would say, the only thing challenging the status quo right now. It's kind of why we love it.
But it
You
also, but it also seems like they aren't able to get a consensus on that hemp stuff because people don't like the cannabis industry either.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, CityCast Chicago just covered it today. I was actually going to have a clip ready for that. I've got one ready to share, but I thought it was really interesting at the end of the episode how they basically said what a lot of other people in the media seem to be picking up on. Something, it's again the reason why we love hemp. It's like this would not even be as contentious of an issue as it is if it weren't for the highly restricted nature of the cannabis industry in Illinois. Like, you don't see a lot of people getting into hemp in Michigan. Like, because they don't have to.
You just have to remind people, like, the south side of Chicago has like 800,000 people. It's pretty much half the land area of the city, and there's one dispensary.
One. And that's where all the arrests continue too. I believe we've found through University of Illinois research that's where the arrests continue. So,
but it's just because the licenses are so few and far between, and the barrier's so high. Like, like some people might say, like, oh, the south side of Chicago, it's just because no one wants to invest and put a shop there. It's like, I visit family around Flint a lot. I have been to rough parts of Flint that have dispensaries. Like, extremely impoverished parts of that city that have dispensaries. Probably because it was cheap to set up shop there. Like, people would be building dispensaries in the south side if there wasn't just such a limit on the licenses and it didn't cost so much to start a shop.
Yeah. And that's all the issue is about. And it's another thing that's interesting to that point. And this was covered in the CityCast Chicago episode that I listened to today. It released today, April 14th, 2025, if people want to try to check it out. I can't remember what the episode name was, but it was like, will hemp get banned or something like that? I'll try to find it. Will hemp weed get banned in Chicago? That's what the episode title was. They pointed out, and we've heard this before, but it's just interesting to hear media picking it up. They pointed out that, just as you said, like, the only reason people are getting into hemp is because the barrier to entry is so high. And the reason that cannabis operators are opposed to it is because the barrier to entry is so low. And it's just like, I mean, look, it's the definition of sunk cost fallacy, where it's like, we spent all this money, we had to comply with these regulations, and so you should too. But that's not even part of the conversation either. Like, it's, if you notice that, right? Like,
oh no, yeah. Yeah, it's like, you should just fuck off.
Yeah, literally. You should just fuck off. Because this was our...
Well, which is hilarious too, because like that woman who wrote that op-ed recently in like the Chicago Business, in Cranes. Yeah. She's from like Excel Leaf is like the name of the dispensary or whatever. And I think it's like, she's like a doctor, like some of her, some other people who were otherwise successful. I can't remember if I remember this correctly, but it was like she doesn't even smoke weed. So like, I don't know.
She was a nurse.
A nurse. Okay. I just feel like a lot of the people who have like managed to get these licenses and said, like, they don't like weed even. They're just fucking doing this to make money. Like Portia from Bridgewater. Isn't Bridgewater the name of it?
Yeah, Bridgewater Collective.
Like, we interviewed her. I mean, she's successful and a business person, but like she literally does not use cannabis.
True.
That's fine, but it's also not fine when you're out there advocating against hemp and like trying to take access away from people that actually use cannabis.
Yeah. No, I specifically have talked to somebody that described cannabis as a widget and said that, they just want to make sure that the cost of the widget doesn't go down. They don't use it. They don't have any plans to use it, but they have a
Well,
craft license. And yeah, go ahead.
and so when the market is like the Illinois market is whatever, it's successful by some measures and not successful by others. But like, I don't know, clearly they're like struggling to make money. And like, there's just a lot of people in the state that don't use this market because it just is so out of touch with the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's so interesting to me to see, and I know this probably falls on deaf ears with them, but to hear them complain about all these different things, 280E, not being able to accept credit cards, all of those different things. It's like, then why not lean into hemp? Because fuck you, that's why. It's basically, like you said,
well, it's funny because, yeah, like a lot of these, like the main people complaining about hemp are the social equity licensees, which I get it. But like the bigger players are all just starting hemp companies.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I imagine part of the thinking of these, like some of these social equity licensees are playing both sides, like River Bluff Collective and some other ones, I'm sure. But the ones who aren't, it's like, I feel like their thinking is like, oh, well, that's a gamble because they could ban hemp tomorrow and then I'll be out that investment. But it's like, you didn't think cannabis was a gamble? You just
Right.
like took the state's word for it that like you were going to have this protected license and you were going to have generational wealth if you could just get this license. Like, you didn't think you were actually getting into a business and you were going to have to like compete, put in the work, struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I mean, they should all just start hemp companies too.
Yeah. Yeah, one I saw today, I'll display it on screen just because I know he can handle it. He can handle the criticism. I think I shared this with you. Our friend Miggy from Cannabis Legalization News shared this image, and it says, it's like I guess it's supposed to be an action figure. Everybody's kind of doing this now. And it says, it's all THCA, bro. The farm bill made weed legal, even though you don't have rights. And I see him say this a lot on the show. He'll say, well, if hemp is legal, why can you get fired for testing positive for THC? It's like, you can get fired for testing positive for THC with legal weed in like all states.
You can get fired for testing positive for opiates because you like poppy seed muffins.
Yeah. And also the idea, that you don't have rights, like the same exact thing could be said about legal weed here again. Like, you don't have your Second Amendment right. You can't, I know plenty of people that work in the cannabis industry that can't get a fucking loan to buy a house. You can't, your taxes are all fucked up. It's just like with the federally illegal marijuana, like it seems like you have less rights than with hemp. But
the gun stuff is a big one. I feel like people should talk about more. I would hope the Supreme Court would decide. Wasn't there some Hunter Biden case? They were like,
yeah, which was funny because that would have been amazing if that would have overturned that, because it would have just really melted the minds of people on the right. Because it's like, wait a minute, did Hunter Biden just give us more rights with guns? I don't think
it would have been a good thing for everybody.
Yeah. Somebody, Guapo said he got pardoned. Yeah. Thanks, Obama, he says. But no, I mean, seriously, I do think that is like an issue that needs more focus, because I can't think of anything else where you give up a constitutional right for.
Well, because, yeah. Because, like, I can't technically buy a gun, right?
You can buy a gun, but not from a federally licensed firearm dealer. Like, I could sell you a gun.
Right. Okay.
Good
to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you ever need, no, I'm joking.
Or like since I have a medical card, but my husband doesn't, he could just like. what
Well,
is it? Straw. What is this? When you
I was
have,
going to say
like,
that's a
gun
straw
buyer?
purchase, which I think is
I
technically
could just have my husband straw purchase guns for me.
yeah. I think that's technically still not okay, but yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's really funny that just like really what it is the medical card. You know, you basically can't lie on the form because
Well, but it also, if you already have guns and you get a medical card and you have a concealed carry, it voids the concealed carry, doesn't it?
Not
Didn't we talk
not from
about
what
that
I
with like?
understand. No, you can have a FOID and concealed carry. Somebody said that is not a straw man purchase, so I don't know what
No, like we were
is.
talking with Peter Contos that one time, or like you might have been talking with him, and I was just watching. I can't remember, but
Mhm.
it was about like there's cases in Illinois where people are getting felonies because they have a gun
Right.
like on them in a car or something.
Yeah.
But the
That
fact
I
that they have a medical cannabis card like voids their ability to like have that thing out in the world.
Yeah, so like well real quick, someone said it is legal to purchase a firearm for an immediate family member. So I think you're good there. I mean, obviously I don't know. I don't know, but that it sounds like they have experience. They're saying telling you from personal experience. They said you can have CCW and a med card, but back to your point, if you're caught with it, and this is what Peter Contos was talking about with Leader Lightfoot actually, because she has like a soft spot in her heart, I guess, for concealed carry.
Well,
Um,
because she was literally some guys tried to like carjack her and her husband, and they literally like fought them off with a gun.
yeah, yeah. So that makes sense. That makes sense why she would have a little bit of a passion
Yeah,
for the
so
subject.
she's got a passion for it, you could say.
But I guess some people, yeah, like you said, and this is how Peter brought it to us for people that are curious and want to know. Um, yeah, that if you get caught with cannabis and a firearm, that can turn into like a violent offense or something like that.
Oh, it was being caught with cannabis and the gun.
Yes, correct. Not
Okay,
just the
interesting.
card and the gun. Yeah. So, like if you have
Because
a
I
both,
thought it was the like having the medical card status voided your like concealed carry, so then you were like committing a felony just being out in the world. And I was like, well, isn't that kind of like entrapment if you're like even issuing these people both things? Like those both come
Right.
from the state. Like that's it's like that makes no sense.
Yeah. Somebody commented and said, I think this is when we were still talking about hemp. They said, except hemp companies are not paying taxes to the state that cannabis is on the same
They pay
product.
sales tax.
I was going to say they do pay sales tax, just not as much. It's still taxed, just not ridiculously.
And our sales tax is pretty ridiculous already. So
yeah. Someone else said, I spoke to the police. Whatever license you had before you got your med card, they want you to maintain. You cannot have cannabis and guns together. That is yeah, what I recall hearing. So yeah, well, good discussion there.
At some date in the future, you'll be able to have your bag of joints in one pocket and your gun in the other.
Right. Well, and that's what's funny. I wouldn't be able to find it right now. It would take me too much time. But I have posted in the past because I was watching some content on YouTube and I like just was paying attention to what was in the video, and it was literally a man in a tobacco field in the back of his truck drinking alcohol and with guns. Like, so it's like it's kind of just funny to think about, like, you know, you have a little bit of weed and guns and all of a sudden it's a fucking big problem. Crazy world.
Years ago when I was first met my husband and was dating him, I went to go visit his family in Michigan, and we're all like hanging out by the campfire drinking, like we're all drunk, and I go inside at some point, and I'm like really tall, so I'm like one of the only people that sees on top of the fridge, I'm sure. But I like go in to get a beer and I stand up and I just see two handguns on top of the fridge. I was like, oh.
Yeah, dude.
I was like, okay.
That's funny. Ain't that America? That's yeah. Sounds
That was
like
definitely
some,
not my family growing up. So it was just a little bit of culture shock.
yeah, a
But
little
now I'm at the
jarring.
point where I'm like, hey, I got to get my own guns.
Right. Yeah. Got to get my own guns to have on top of my fridge.
Well, it's and it's a great way for me to bond with my father-in-law. Take him out there. He can to teach me how to shoot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a fun way to spend time together, bond, like you say. That's cool. That's cool. Well, yeah. Crazy stuff, man. Well, I'm glad you got to go to Hash Bash. That's super cool. Thank you for coming on and talking about it. Let's what do you think about this comment before we go? Because it came in just now. They say sales tax is a cop out. There's a difference between a 30 to 50% sin tax and standard sales tax of 8 to 9%. The sin tax is
yeah,
why
of course.
cannabis feels like hemp is cheating the state on taxes.
Well, they can start by repealing the R3 tax, which penalizes victims of the war on drugs to pay for the harms of the war on drugs. But yeah, it just shouldn't be taxed that much.
Yeah.
But hemp does pay tax. I just like to throw that in there when people say they don't pay tax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, that hemp is sold out of some establishment that pays property tax, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. They have to pay the taxes on the gas and travel.
We're taxed to death in this country. There's literally no way that hemp pays zero tax.
Yeah. Can you try? So you kind of stated it, but just explain it real quick before we go again. Like, it does feel weird sometimes that we're taxing cannabis users for the harms.
Oh, this is the biggest one, man. It's like social equity people, legislators, they all want to get out there and be like, the R3 tax, we're paying to fix the harms of the war on drugs. Okay, who the fuck are you taxing? Who pays that tax? Recreational cannabis customers pay that tax. The people that literally still to this day look in their rear view mirror to see if a cop is behind them because God forbid they get pulled over and that cannabis is, the slightest bit detectable of a scent. Like that tax is just a terrible, terrible fucking thing.
Yeah. Victims of the war on drugs are paying to foot the bill on the war on drugs.
Like, if anything, it should have been a payroll tax on police or a payroll tax on legislators who kept it illegal for so long. Like, I don't know who should have paid for it. Tax alcohol to pay to fix the harms of the war on cannabis. Don't tax literal cannabis users who you're now claiming you're like making shit all good for.
Yeah. And maybe we can leave the people with a teaser. We did a recent episode, which I guess I might be able to release in the near future, because the question is like, cannabis is legal, right?
No.
We just, yeah. We just talked to somebody else that is, facing.
But that's not even the only person we've talked about, and you've spoken to. There was that other guy who had, I don't even know if he had plants actively growing in his house, but he had like over 100 grams of cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Did he have plants?
I don't think at the time he did, if my memory is.
I don't think he did.
Yeah. And if people want to talk, see.
But yeah, if you live in one of these like small population counties in Illinois, there is the chance that there is some backward shit that will go on and you will have your house raided for pretty much being in compliance with the laws here.
Yeah, in this case that we're teasing right now, this person had a medical card. The call that came in from a confidential informant said that they smelled cannabis outside of their home. When did that become probable cause to search a house? And by the way, they came to the house with a SWAT team with a battering ram. Like, I thought cannabis
after surveilling them for a while. After
surveilling them and finding that in fact they did have a medical card, which in my conversations with the state, the state has told me in the past, if we suspect somebody's growing cannabis, we will check if they have a medical card. It seems like that check was made, but they decided they're going to proceed with the search anyways.
I mean, that whole like that whole like defund the police movement was such a like tactical error on the left side of things, like a rhetoric error. But truly, like where it comes from is shit like this.
Yeah.
Like when you hear like this guy's being surveilled multiple times and like all the investigation work that goes into all the man hours.
Stalked
It's
him
like
on Facebook.
yeah, it's like maybe don't defund all the police, maybe defund the police in this county.
Right. Or in this context,
Like,
why are you
Jesus.
looking into cannabis crimes that are, like not I don't even want to call them crimes, cannabis activity. Like again,
Yeah,
as you
and, like-
stated in that podcast, if what people want to look at the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, the way that it literally starts is in the interest of allowing law enforcement to focus on nonviolent and property crime, we, the General Assembly, find that cannabis should be legal. It's like, so, okay, let them focus on violent and property crime. Why are they even wasting time on cannabis? It's crazy.
But that's like just it though too. Like like he talked about being stereotyped in that episode. Like he's a guy that's got dreadlocks. Like he looks like a stereotypical stoner. Like he's someone who would have been at Hash Bash. Like I was talking about, like people who society might view you as some kind of unsavory character, or not like because you're like part of a counterculture. You're not going with the flow of things. Like that's why, like, yeah, like an event like that is important, because you do really have to say sometimes and remind people, like, fuck the man, they're gonna pick on people.
Yeah, and they do. And somebody said actually a point that I said during the episode. I was like, well, maybe they're viewing that as a property crime. Maybe they've got illegal untaxed cannabis. That is exactly how they seem to be looking at this. And it's just unfortunate they overlooked the fact that this person had a med card, and yeah. So anyways, before we close, I just want to say that if people want to see the other story we were referencing, if you go to colememo.com/isitlegal, I've got a few different stories of some crazy shit that's happened. The story that Phil was just referencing, not the one that we were just teasing, but the one that we started with, is David's story. And David is a person that told me he was a medical cannabis patient complying with the law. Still, he ended up with trouble due to the mere possession of cannabis. We've also had Christian Reichert on and a lot of other people. A lot of good stories here. So definitely check out colememo.com/isitlegal, because we're constantly asking that question. And somebody had a good last question for you, I think, Phil, to wrap it up. Did you make it to the Cup at Hash Bash?
I did not, but I think I will make an attempt to go the next time I'm there.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I like that. I've heard it's a problem, like, because it's like it's one of those old, like, Holodome convention centers. Have you ever seen those? Like back in the day, it was like a Holiday Inn where it was like a big domed thing and there was like a pool in the main area. Like, so that's where they have it all set up. But I've heard in the past, it fills up with so much smoke that they've had to evacuate it because the fire alarm gets set off.
Yeah. No, and sorry, this person actually just made our case. They said, so argue there should be no sin tax and unlimited licenses. But let's be honest and admit we are making one group pay tax and another not. If cannabis and hemp work together, this would be over. I don't know about you, Phil, but I agree with everything they just said.
Yeah, but cannabis doesn't want to work with anybody.
And that's what I would say is the difference is, like, on one hand, let me put it this way. In hemp, you didn't hear, like, when Curaleaf and GTI got into it, you didn't hear a bunch of hempers, for lack of better words, saying, GTI, Curaleaf, you're not allowed. They were just like, bring it, bitch, let's go.
Well, and I don't even think that the cannabis licensees in Illinois would take a lower tax rate if it meant having to remove license caps.
Exactly.
They wear that tax as a badge of honor. They say, I'm taxed at this rate. I bring in so much revenue for the state, and these people are like, they're like no goods, they don't get taxed at all. Oh, well, what if we removed your tax and to let them all take part? No.
Yeah, and that's what I really view as the difference here, where it's like on one side of the fence, the hemp side of the fence, it's like come one, come all. And then on the marijuana side of the fence, it's like no, you're not allowed. We got our golden ticket, and that's that. So someone said, is there a number that everyone could agree on for a tax rate? And Guapo said 0. I agree. But
yeah, I don't even think they could lower it that much because of the way they structured it. The only thing you could do is get rid of the potency taxes.
Here's what I'll say. Let the localities decide on taxes and license limits, because they already do for like most other products. So I'm not saying you can't have license limitations. I'm not saying you can't have taxes. We went to Evergreen Park and found that they had like a limit of smoke shops that could be in town. I'm okay with that. I just think that the state setting the cap is like, the state shouldn't be in the business of picking and choosing winners.
Yeah, that was how you literally wound up with the all wealthy white medical industry that everyone was so upset about. And then what was the solution? Well, let's let Illinois pick winners and losers in a convoluted licensing process again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, look, you even had places like Naperville. I remember for the longest time, they wouldn't have they would not allow for dispensaries. And it's like, all right, your loss. and they finally did make the decision to, allow dispensaries because they saw that it could be a benefit to them. But yeah, I think we leave that to the locales.
GTI also set up an operation to fund a campaign there to get them to do that.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that, but
we looked that up at some point. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, it sounds like the people like that. They say that works for me. I like that too. I want to enable my local government, not the state. Yeah, that's how I look at it, Let the localities decide, because you know what? They're the best to decide for themselves, in my opinion. But we could go on and on. Phil, I always enjoy discussing these topics with you. And
always.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And we'll have to go to the next hash.
Everyone take a trip to Ann Arbor. I think they have a Entheogen Fest, I think is in fall.
Yeah. And like somebody, Guapo said, Bicycle Day's coming up. And then, like I said, I'll be having somebody that helped to lead the decriminalization movement in Ann Arbor on the show here in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. Should be a good one. Please, folks, smash that like button if you haven't already. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share it with your friends. All that stuff helps. And we'll see you in the next episode of the Cole Memo, everybody. Take